Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say that now we're in the beginning of 2021, a new year, and I'd like to start with the one-on-one interview discussions. And one of the people that I've always wanted to have such a discussion with is Brian Kysela, and we know him also from his YouTube channel, which is Kubricklover1972. And so I owe Brian a lot because he has done so much, absolutely so much for this channel in ways that are very public but also behind the scenes as well. So it was my great pleasure and honor to be able to talk with him. And so what you're about to see is that conversation that we had a couple weeks ago. So I hope you enjoy it. And he's such a really nice guy, very much into cinema and very much into the arts. And not only that, as I say, he does so much for this channel and also for other channels. He is not only an enthusiastic film fan, which he is, but he's also someone who takes care of a lot of matters in live streams and live chats, and he's always very friendly, always very professional, and always very supportive. So I want to emphasize again that I owe him so much, and so I was really waiting for this opportunity for a while, and so it came up. So I was so happy to have been able to speak with him directly in this manner. I should say also, from a technical point of view, please note that there are some areas where we use Zoom, and I use Zoom, but there are some areas where there might have been a couple technical issues here and there, and I've done my best to fix them in post-production, as it were, but there might be a little bit of a video delay, especially I think on my end of things, and things of that nature. So I've done my best to clean it up, but you might notice some little technical faults along the way. So I sincerely apologize for that. I hope it doesn't distract too much, but once again, I did my very best to do that, but there were some things that I couldn't fix. So, but I don't think it hinders too much in the overall conversation. So once again, I hope you enjoy it, my friends. And last but not least, of course, you can find more information about our dear friend Brian and his other YouTube channels in the description box below. So please take a look at that if you are interested. So without further ado, let's go to the conversation. I hope you enjoy it, my friends.
Greetings from Tokyo. This is Daisuke, and I am very honored today because we are joined by a very special guest. His name is Brian Kysela, and you may know him as Kubricklover1972. So indeed, Kubricklover1972, the legend, has very kindly agreed to give up some of his very precious time to join us today. So Brian, Kubricklover1972, yeah. Welcome. It's such an honor for me.
Thank you. And I feel honored on my side too, just being asked to do this, and what I have to say, that you're interested in what I have to say, so, and I'm finally glad to see you on camera. Like, I mean, we've talked on the streams that you've done, but like now I can actually see, we're actually talking, camera wise.
Exactly. So. And thank you so much for bringing that up about the live streams, because yes, one of the many things that you do is you are, well, of course you have your own YouTube channel, Kubricklover1972, but also you are a very important member of the sort of online film appreciation community, and in particular with regard to live streams. And I know that you are a very active participant in a lot of the live streams. For example, our dear friend the great Mr. Aaron Pinn.
Yeah.
And also what a great guy he is, and also you are always very considerate with your time, and you help and you contribute to the live streams that I do here on this channel. So and as well as many others, of course. So you are
Yeah.
very active, and that's another thing that I want to touch upon briefly if we have time later. But
Yeah.
first of all, let me ask you, you mentioned your channel, Kubricklover1972. For anyone out there who might not be aware of your channel yet, could you let us know briefly about what your channel is and what it is you tend to talk about on that channel,
Um,
Kubricklover1972?
well, first off, the name comes from my favorite director, Stanley Kubrick. So, and the year I was born, 72. So I thought that's what it should be called. And yeah, so anyways, on my channel, obviously there's film related stuff, reviews, pickups. Um, I do like a hodgepodge. I also do, I've done a little poetry, I've done a little music. So it's kind of all sorts of stuff on there. There's a lot of film related stuff. I mean, like with my fairly recent reviews, I sort of changed up my approach. Well, when I was doing streaming stuff, like I was having a picture on the side of me, on the like the upper right, upper left, so they could see the film I was talking about, like a picture of it. And then like so I did a series, and I'd like maybe I'd like to go back to it at some point, because I didn't do it all in October, but I called it Brian's Halloween Dinners. And well, I mean, the introductory video for it was I took some fake limbs and I said I had some friends over for dinner. Yeah. but then I reviewed a few movies, Japanese films, because I was going to focus on Japanese horror films for October, because I don't think it was October 2019, maybe it was 2018. I think it was 2 years ago. So at that particular time, I was going to do one horror film each day of October, but I got a little behind, and then my computer drive got filled up because I had so much material on it, so I had to use my iPhone. And so I thought this particular 2020, I would just focus on lesser amounts of films and maybe focus more on like one area. So I chose Japanese horror films. And so I did like Dark Water, and I did Pulse, and I went onto Google Images and I took pictures, and as I was talking, you'd see photos of what I was talking about. So I thought to make it more interesting, than just seeing me talk. I guess people seeing me talk is okay, but I just thought I'd change it up a bit and approach it differently. So, I mean, there is, I have the Ring series, the Japanese Ring series, but I also have the American remakes. And I was thinking of doing a video on that. And initially I was thinking of doing it in October, but October came and went, and I said, well, maybe I'll do it in November, but here we are in January, and I still haven't done it, but maybe at some point, if I can get myself motivated, I will arrange a video on that, so that's some of what I've done, yeah.
It sounds like you're interested, obviously, in, for example, Japanese cinema and Japanese horror films in particular. You've mentioned some titles already. What are some other examples of films from this area of the world that you are particularly interested in?
Well, you mean Japan you're talking about, I assume, maybe?
Yes, for example,
Oh,
yes.
well, I mean, like directors like Kurosawa and Ozu, um, and Ichikawa and Teshigahara, Oshima, You know, I like I do like all kinds of directors from all over the world, and um, I, I mean, it's not that I don't like Hollywood cinema. I do, you know, but these six pack abs and these explosions, it's tiring because it gets formulaic and everything. And so like I watched a few days ago, I like Iranian films a lot, and I watched Taste of Cherry by Abbas Kiarostami. And you know, I don't know, it's what you can make out of something without using a whole ton of explosions, but thinking it out and thinking outside the box, and you know, just thinking simply. You don't have to have the most. I mean, you can have explosions, the big technical achievements, but you don't have to. You know, I mean, it's a different way of going about doing something. You know,
Yeah,
but
that's for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, the especially I like how you described now Taste of Cherry is a film that is very much, in many senses of the phrase, a film that is outside of the box. So I completely agree with you about that's really wonderful. And it sounds like, of course, you're pursuing many avenues
yeah,
of cinema. You mentioned, of course, the name of Stanley Kubrick as being the inspiration for the title of your YouTube name and moniker. So I have to now ask you, what are some of your favorite Kubrick films?
basically almost all of them, except there are a few that don't quite work for me. Like Lolita's, it's good, but it's not great. I mean, um, he seemed to really, well, I mean, he seemed to take a lot of time making his films, painstakingly. You know, I know a lot of you know, there's a lot of directors like David Fincher and Ridley Scott, and Martin Scorsese right now would be my favorite living director, because not just him as a filmmaker, but him as a film preserver and educator, and you know, just his respect for cinema and trying to keep it alive, and you know, noticing cinema from areas of the world that kind of are forgotten, or well, I don't know if they're forgotten, but like just lesser known areas, which I like to watch as well. But yeah, Kubrick, yeah. So yeah, I'd say like Kubrick, like some of my favorite films of all times that are in genres are by him. Like it's one of the greatest horror films of all time, I think, is The Shining. One of the greatest period films of all time is Barry Lyndon. Maybe Barry Lyndon is regarded as like one of the, maybe it's overcome this, but well, I think maybe it was one of the most underrated films of the 70s. Like with a film like The Conversation, it was, you know, these films that maybe they weren't appreciated at the time, but now they're very highly appreciated. Um, like, you know, with Barry Lyndon, he used Zeiss lenses that he broke Mitchell cameras open. He actually said, break this. They didn't use Mitchell cameras at the time. I learned this from a documentary in my Kubrick box set, but he said take those Mitchell cameras apart and literally put a Zeiss lens, which was a lens from NASA that had a wide aperture to allow light in, because I think at that time they didn't have lenses and film stocks that could accept as much light, and maybe they had to use more light, but he was doing it by candlelight, which was incredible. And I think Kubrick does most of his films by available light. I don't know if he uses like other filmmakers, artificial light that's made to look like natural light. If I think that's the case, I'm not quite sure on that, but yeah. So yeah, like a lot of his films, Clockwork Orange, one of the greatest crime films of all times. And then 2001, a great science fiction movie. The sets are, you know, the circular sets and the epic nature, and the end of it is, I think it could apply to whatever you believe in, whether you're religious or an atheist or a scientist. You know, just one film that doesn't quite work for me is Full Metal Jacket. The boot camp is great. The prostitute at the start of Vietnam is good, and then the sniper at the end, but the rest of it I think is kind of dead. And maybe Kubrick was trying to do something with this narrative structure or something, but it just didn't work for me. I don't know. Maybe I just can't give it the same ringing of endorsement compared to like Doctor Strangelove, you know? So yeah. So
Do you find that when you saw Kubrick films as they were coming out, and when you saw them for the first time, were you taken with them immediately? In other words, did you like them for the most part immediately upon initial watch, or was it a case that when you watched a film for the first time, a Kubrick film for the first time, it was okay, but maybe you still needed to watch it again and then again and again, and then it was only upon those rewatches that you began to really like them more and more? How was it for you and Kubrick film watching?
I'd say with most of the Kubrick films, I was immediately in with them, if you will. But maybe 2001 took a little warming up too. I'd say it's one of my favorite films of all time. But I mean, I'd say it took a little warming up too. Like there's some science fiction films that are great. You know, Blade Runner is another one of my favorites. But then there are some that are so highly praised, and I think they're horrible, like Logan's Run. I just can't stand Logan's Run, and I think I get lambasted, or I don't like saying, how could you? Some people say to me like, how can you not like that movie? And I just don't like the design of it. I guess malls were new at the time or something, but THX 1138, I mean, that's sort of maybe the same aesthetic, but I think it works better, even by today's standards. But Logan's Run looks too it looks too dated to me, and I don't like the robot, and I don't like the dialogue. I haven't seen the film in a long time, but I'm digressing, I know, but yeah, but that's but yeah, most Kubrick films I liked right away when I watched them. Yeah, and at the time, you know, when I started buying movies, it was VHS movies, which was like the 80s and the 90s. And because I had less movies, I tended to watch the same movies more than once. So, like, I own more movies now, but some movies I don't watch as much, or movies that I used to watch as much, I don't watch as much now because I'm watching other movies. So
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really
yeah.
interesting, because I don't know what the situation will be for you and any future watches of the film that you mentioned earlier, which was Full Metal Jacket. But I can say, as an example for me, to go along with the Kubrick discussion, I can say that when I first saw the film Eyes Wide Shut,
Mhm.
I admit that I was quite perplexed by a number of the elements about it. So it was a little bit hard for me to get fully absorbed in upon first watch. But I think that was due also, and I think primarily, to the fact that I saw it at a time in my life where I was still very young. I
Mhm.
was in, if I recall correctly, it was around the time, maybe it was end of high school, beginning of college years. So I was still in my late teenage years, admittedly, I think,
Oh.
around that time. So still very
Uh-huh.
young. And so I think at that time in my life when I saw Eyes Wide Shut, maybe I wasn't necessarily in a position to be able to fully appreciate what that film was trying to do in terms of its discussion of marriage and relationships and that sort of thing, because I hadn't experienced that in my life. And then it was only later when I was growing up, and I got married and I settled down, and I began to reevaluate that film, and I watched it, and I realized how powerful it was. And again, I have this this kind of reaction oftentimes with films. I think a similar thing happened with me in Fellini's film 8½, but it was maybe around the time when I saw it when I was young. Maybe I wasn't ready to engage with it. It was only after the passage of time and some life experience that I was able to engage with films like that. So um, I find that to be a really fascinating aspect, in particular, I think, for Kubrick films. But I think you touch on a lot of excellent points there, as always. So
Oh well, Fellini. I think I immediately picked up on. Well, actually, the first one I think I saw his was it. I think it was in the Ship Sails On, which I wasn't too wild about, but I think my father wanted to take it, but he wanted to look at it. But yeah, but 8½, I think I immediately it it was incredible. But La Dolce Vita, that's my personal favorite of Fellini's. Um, I'm not really a writer, but I mean, I write poetry. So like, I, I sort of, I sort of identify with some of these characters in these movies, like Taxi Driver. Well, I'm not a maniac, and I'm not going to go out and shoot people, but it's just these unique characters, like Marcello in La Dolce Vita, like his insomnia and um, his relationship with his family, and just I don't know. It just I identified with it somewhat, and I just like the excess in it, and I really love La Dolce Vita. I'm digressing. I know I'm not talking about Kubrick right here.
oh no,
But you
please, this is
mentioned
great.
Fellini,
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I do like some of Fellini's movies a lot, particularly 8½, and my favorite, La Dolce Vita.
Yeah, those are great choices. Those are
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, this, and you're absolutely right to point out the idea of decadence and the main character there, Marcello, and how he is a kind of journeyman on the one hand, but he's also like a passive observer of things around him. So you're not quite sure if he's gonna jump on the opportunity and do something. Is he going to do something meaningful or not? I mean, that's one of the things as well, and that's a question that I think I certainly ask myself. I mean, what am I going to do with my life? That sort of thing. So it has this opportunity for a lot of connection with the viewers, because we see a character that I think is in some levels, as you indicate, may or may not be trying to engage in a kind of self examination, and whether he's successful or not in this world of decadence and the high life and celebrity and all this stuff. So in this
like,
city, right? It's a real kind of a carnival type of atmosphere, while at the same time being very very serious, and oftentimes dealing with quite profound philosophical issues like life and death.
oh,
And so, yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
amazing.
yeah, it's entertaining at the same time, and yet it's thought provoking. Yeah.
Exactly. So
That,
excellent choice. Yeah.
that brings me to people know on YouTube, and I guess Facebook too, and maybe people people in my life, around me, some people, they know that I like movies that have unhappy endings or kind of tragic. And I guess it's like Fassbinder and Ozu for me on that. I think Fassbinder, like almost all of his films, have unhappy endings, except for maybe 8 Hours Don't Make a Day, because I think the people that funded that, they would only give him the money if he gave them a happy ending. And then like Ozu with like Tokyo Story with elderly parents, and Late Spring with a older daughter and a old father, and just the passage of time, and just maybe I'm getting older. I'm 48, and I'm thinking differently about life, and maybe, I mean, I'm going all over the place a little bit, but like Kelly Reichardt, she did a film called River of Grass, um, and like one of the things I find unique about that movie is the male lead. His tooth missing and he's a beer belly, and it's just not. I like the fact that it's not romanticizing getting away, going on a. I think they're like on a crime spree, and I just, yeah, it's just this thing. I'm starting to the Hollywood Marvel stuff. This. It's just tiresome. It's just. But I like these films like Fassbinder and Ozu, which are much more. Well, oh, and Ingmar Bergman, he's another one. Like The Shame is one of my favorite movies. Extremely depressing, but I really like it. But I think it's because life, and I don't want to be a downer kind of a person, because I don't think life is all downer. But you have to. Everybody's going to die. People are going to get sick. I guess adult children will leave their parents at some point and live on their own, and like in Tokyo Story, So it's just it's not that I don't like films with happy endings, like 8.5. He accepts his life. I guess he doesn't decide to make a film, but he accepts himself as who he is, and takes joy in the fact of who he is in his life, and not try to. He realizes he just can't come off with making it the science fiction movie. So I guess it's I guess it's what I think. I mean, about some films these days, But yeah, I do like movies with happy endings too. It's not to say that I don't. I mean, I'm giving you a lot of examples of unhappy ending movies, but I do like happy ending movies. Like There Will Be Blood is another one, which I think is maybe the greatest from the 21st century so far. But it's like he's greedy, and maybe I don't know if I've analyzed this well, but maybe his greed just leads him to a bitter end, a terrible end, where he kills this other guy, just because maybe it's the natural conclusion of the way he's going to evolve as a human being, that he's just pure greedy and just ruthless, so yeah, so yeah, I do like a lot of films that are more, and I'm beginning to like a lot of films that approach much maybe like with The Taste of Cherry or Ozu, with Tokyo Story, and Late Spring, and I like a lot of Fassbinder movies. Really like them a lot. I like Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. Beware of a Holy Whore. Like Bitter Tears, I like the fact that it has 6 actresses in it, and it's just set in one bedroom, and how Petra von Kant gets obsessed with this woman, Karen, and basically she goes nuts, and she doesn't acknowledge her daughter, her mother. I don't know who the other character is, if it's her sister or her friend. But yeah, she goes nuts. And I like Beware of a Holy Whore, which has to do with like boredom. So I've worked on film sets, so I know like basically one guy that makes horror movies, and it's time consuming, like setting up lights and stuff like that. So Beware of a Holy Horror, I think, is a very good representation of what it's like, you know, when a film crew is just sitting around doing nothing and boredom. And so I like that a lot. And then I like World on a Wire, because I think that's like, maybe it's like Army of Shadows. It's like nobody knows about those movies. They disappear. And then all of a sudden, you know, 30 years later, they come back into the public eye. And the World on a Wire is like the Matrix before there was a Matrix. And even though I like the Matrix, I mean, I like what they can do with what Fassbinder was doing in the 70s with, maybe it's cheap looking in a way, but it has a certain charm to it, just the way he presents it. So yeah, so
That's great. No,
yeah,
you've shown us in that little bit. You've shown us your excellent range. You're really wide in scope in terms of the types of films that are on your radar, which is excellent. And I'm I also have to, before I move on, I have to say that I owe you a huge, well, I'm indebted to you very deeply. And I owe you so much because, well, in addition to the films that you mentioned just now, or the filmmakers you mentioned just now, you also are, I assume, a fan of James Bond movies. And so I on my channel here, I am very slowly going through discussions of James Bond films in a live stream format.
yeah.
And
I prepared for Fear Eyes only yesterday. I watched the movie.
thank you.
So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that's going to be as of this recording, that's going to take place tomorrow morning my
Yeah.
time. So yes, so
So
thank
sorry
you.
interrupting you.
No,
I'm sorry
no,
for
not at all.
interrupting.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. You were very polite, but no,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much for mentioning that. So yes, so for Your
Yeah.
Eyes Only is going to
Yeah.
happen tomorrow. But this brings me to the point, which is I have to thank you so much, Brian, really, because you are very active in the live chat, and you always talk to other people there, and so you're a participant, and also you're looking out for me, and you're just making
Yeah.
sure everything is okay, and you're a moderator as well, so you can help me out if there's some comment that needs to be accepted or something like that. And also you
Yeah.
also go out of your way, I know, to mention it in various other social media platforms, so
Oh yeah.
you
Uh-huh.
publicize it ahead of time, and you don't have to do that, but you do. And so I'm very,
Yeah.
very grateful
Oh, thank
for
you.
your kindness and devotion and dedication to this. And so I want to just make it absolutely clear for everyone out there, you are so important and integral to the live streams that I do on this channel. And so I'm very, I don't think they would be what I mean, I can't do it. And I think they would fall apart without your participation. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
oh, don't worry, God. So
どういたしまして。
don't mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but but I have to, because
Yeah.
it really is. You go so far in your enthusiasm for this. So I have to thank you so
Okay.
much for that. I'm very,
Oh,
very grateful. And
well,
yeah.
yeah, I'm grateful that you're streaming, and you know that I'm participating, and you know, I think you contribute a lot to the stream, and you know, um, you're very good at articulating as to what you think about the Bond films, and um, your zeal, your enthusiasm is contagious, and just I mean, just um, you you really have a tireless enthusiasm for movies, you know, which is just I mean, that's what I
Oh,
see
thank
on your
you.
channel.
Oh, thank you. Oh, my goodness, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I guess it's for me. I guess it's when we're talking about the Bond movies, it's always very easy to become very excited because they're great
Yeah,
films and they're so much fun
yeah.
and they're really entertaining. So, but that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. And also, I have to say, once again, a great shout out to our dear friend, our mutual friend, Aaron Pin,
Hmm. Yeah,
and who's the absolute best at what he does. I mean, he's the king, So and I know that you're always very much active there as well. So
yeah,
you are just so filled with enthusiasm and energy, and you're supporting so many people with your participation and also your own enthusiasm. So uh, let me say, for me, thank you so much for that, Brian. I
okay.
really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Incidentally, what
yeah.
are some of your favorite Bond movies? Speaking of James Bond.
Uh, well, Roger Moore's Spy Who Loved Me, Sean Connery, Goldfinger, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But Roger Moore's my favorite James Bond. It probably is because he's the first one I was acquainted with. So because I saw him on on ABC television, and he was just the first Bond that I got to know. So I don't know if I started by watching Sean Connery, maybe I would have Sean Connery, but I don't know. I mean, I do like Sean Connery, but it's just I like the zippy one-liners that Roger Moore has. It's kind of is it tongue in cheek? I don't know. It's just this kind of, I don't know exactly what tongue in cheek is. It's just like the zinger kind of quality to him, if you will.
Yeah, the zinger or the quip or the the one-liners. I mean, Sean Connery had him as well, and he had
Yeah,
his own delivery, which is, I think, very very well timed. But you're right, that's one of Roger Moore's strengths for sure. And he certainly has them even in a serious film like For Your Eyes Only, which we'll talk about tomorrow.
yeah.
But he has a lot of them there, and they're really good. So you're so right to bring that up, my friend. Yeah.
Maybe he's more of a. Would you say he's more of a softy than Connery?
A
Connery's a little
softy.
more hard edged,
mm,
and Roger Moore's maybe a little more. I don't. Maybe a little more friendlier. Maybe I'm wrong in that. I don't know.
no, I think there is oftentimes Roger Moore's performance has been described as being for example, it's been described as being the English gentleman type of performance,
Yeah,
or the refined English gentleman type of performance. Not to say that there was any lack of elegance in how Sean Connery portrayed the character, but there is definitely this sense of the of yeah, I mean, I like that, the friendly nature of how he
yeah,
approaches the characters. But that's not to say that there isn't any viciousness to Roger Moore's James Bond. I mean, there are some moments when his James Bond can be quite vicious.
yeah. Like when he has Maud Adams and Man with the Golden Gun, like
Yeah.
twisting her arm. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
twisting women's
even
arms.
yeah, and I think even in some of the behind the scenes documentary or making of documentaries, I think Roger Moore himself maybe expressed a little bit of discomfort with that
Yeah,
kind of portrayal. And I think that is indicative of how he maybe wanted to portray Bond. And there are, as I say, there are moments maybe of viciousness, and also there are moments of a cold-edged Fleming-esque type of Bond, as well as a degree of seriousness when he needs to be serious. But there's also, as you say, a real effervescent charm. I mean, he's so charming on camera. It's like, I don't know, like bubbly champagne or something whenever he's on, you know. And there's such a fun time atmosphere when he is engaged in this material. So yeah, yeah, I think I also grew up with I grew up in the 80s, and so the first Bond films I saw were the Roger Moore films. So, and he was still Bond when I was beginning to become aware of the Bond film universe. So
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I know
Well,
what you're saying. Yeah.
speaking For Your Eyes Only, that was the very first Bond film I saw. Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
When
Oh,
another thing is, before I started buying actual VHS tapes, I would tape them off the TV. So like the starting of For Your Eyes Only, I'd watch over and over again. Um, I did that with a few other movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, the truck scene, um, and I think the starting too. So I'd watch a whole bunch of movies, like Moonraker. For me, is a little uneven for me because I know some people maybe love the whole film. I just think I like the starting. I like the ending, but the middle kind of sags for me. But like, and then when I got to owning DVDs, I could just jump ahead. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is like that with me, I guess. Um, I just jump ahead to the mothership coming to Devil's Tower, and I guess the rest of the film's worth watching, but sometimes I've done that, where I just jump to a scene in the film. Um,
I remember when DVDs first emerged, because
yeah,
up to then, like you, I was used to VHS. And as you know, you had to rewind it. You had to go to it sometimes took a little bit of time. If you went to
yeah,
the end and you wanted to go back to a middle part, you had to rewind and find the exact spot. Sometimes you needed to use the clock counter on the
hmm,
VCR to find the
yeah,
minute or something like that. So it took a little bit of time. And then when DVDs first emerged and you could jump to a chapter, sometimes they didn't have chapter stops, but I think from even the initial ones, I recall they did have chapter stops. And so yeah, I remember, wow, you can skip to a chapter in right. That's amazing, right? And of course there was the Laserdisc as well. And Laserdisc, you could do this as well, but Laserdisc,
right, yeah,
with this is a pretty expensive bit of hardware at the time. And so the DVD, when it emerged like this was an amazing thing for a lot of people, because it was also relatively well, it wasn't. I mean, VHS tapes were also a bit expensive at the time, if I recall, right? If you wanted to
maybe
buy
like
VHS tape,
$20.
sometimes even more, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
you needed
whoa,
to, yeah, like $40 for maybe some
oh,
foreign films, right? Like,
yeah, well,
Suncoast. There was the store called Suncoast,
I
and you had,
vaguely remember. I remember Saturday Matinee. Do
yeah.
you remember? And well, I mean, I recall maybe this is the early '90s. I recall buying Basic Instinct, and maybe it could have been $40.
40.
Um,
But that was I think that was pretty standard.
yeah,
20,
yeah,
30, $40. I mean, of course you could get
yeah,
cheaper priced VHS tapes like $9.99 or maybe even less, but we're talking about new releases, like new shrink wrapped
yeah.
or packaged VHS, so not used tapes, right? Yeah, this. And I remember also like Tetsuo the Iron Man.
I think I've seen it. Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
VHS tape was, you could get it, I think, but it was very expensive, as well as some of the anime, like Akira was coming out on VHS,
Uh-huh.
and so yeah, but they, yeah, very expensive. So what were some of those VHS tapes, video titles that you recall that were particularly important for you growing up, by the way?
Oh, well, I had my Kubrick movies, James Bond films, And I had 8.5, and well, one of the horrible things about the VHS tapes were the fact they were on pan and scan. Before you had DVDs, they chopped it up. I remember. Well, I mean, I mentioned this on your stream on The Spy Who Loved Me. I watched that movie so much on tape, I ruined the tape, so I had to get another tape. But I remember, I think the second tape that I bought of it, I think that was in widescreen. But the first time, I mean, like at the scene where Barbara Bach and Roger Moore meet, is it Max Kalba in that Egyptian nightclub? Their faces were chopped. You could only see parts of their faces, and it's kind of annoying. If you see a film like Star Wars, you really see the fact that it's kind of annoying. Like the title crawl at the start of the movie is chopped up, and yeah. Speaking of laser discs,
please, yeah.
I like one of the films I've seen several times is Star Wars: A New Hope. That's the first film I think I remember seeing in a theater. I think I saw other movies in a theater before that, but I was too young to remember them. I was like 4 or 5 when I saw Star Wars: A New Hope. But yeah, so I think I've seen that particular movie on different formats. Like my father's friend, he had it on Laserdisc. So I think it had 2 Laserdiscs because I think the film is approximately 2 hours. And I think you can fit about half an hour on a Laserdisc, maybe. Yeah. So, yeah. So on Laserdisc. And then, I mean, I think even Empire Strikes Back, maybe I saw on Beta. But like, I remember Beta, and Beta was like, I guess better color resolution, better sound, because of the fact that it was a smaller tape or bigger, like a less tape, so you could put better resolution. I don't know. Beta had an advantage over VHS.
You had a Beta machine as well?
I didn't have a Beta, no, but another, my mother's friend, she had a Beta machine.
Because my family had a beta machine as well, Beta Max, right, or something. But so we had that, and it was connected to the TV, and so actually you could also record. It was just like a VHS VCR, except with beta tapes, and it was. I remember, if I recall correctly, it was one of those things where, you had the VCRs where sometimes it was the slot that was in the front, you could put it in that way, or sometimes it would have the compartment that would open from the top, and you could put it in and you press down. So the Betamax machine that we had was one of these things where you had, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was you open it from the top and you slide the tape in and you press it down, I think. But in any event, it was a little bit more compact than a VCR. And I remember too that I was at the time a big fan of I was living in the States for a little bit growing up, and at the time there was the what was that show that was broadcast on Nickelodeon? You Can't Do That on Television. I was a big fan of this TV show called You Can't Do That on Television. And I recall I recorded all the episodes that I could on beta tapes. And so unfortunately I'm kicking myself now because now I can't play those tapes, unfortunately, and I don't have them anymore. But I remember, you can't. So for whatever reason, I think of Beta and You Can't Do That on Television. But yes, Beta. But I'm sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. But yes, Star Wars. So you are a Star Wars fan then, correct?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like the prequels, I wasn't too wild about, in the 90s. Maybe people, when they first saw The Phantom Menace, they tried to convince themselves it was a good movie because it's a Star Wars film. And then, but then, you know, people looking back, you know, Jar Jar Binks, you know, just, I don't know. It just, it was kind of, the pod race scene was good, but the rest of it forgetful.
What about
Yeah,
the original
yeah.
trilogy?
I like the original trilogy. I just, the Ewoks seem like teddy bears. I can't buy into that. And I also don't like the fact that, why are they building another Death Star? I mean, the Death Star was in the first one. So I guess I can go along for the ride and enjoy it, but I don't know. I probably like The Empire Strikes Back the most. That's a touching movie, you know, where she says, "I love you." Wait, yeah, she's just before he gets carbonated. She says, "I love you," and he says, "I know." It's kind of emotional, you know, that scene.
Yeah, very famous. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a great scene. And
yeah.
also speaking of Star Wars and James Bond, in particular For Your Eyes Only, there's a lot of overlap between the actors who are in say For Your Eyes Only and Empire Strikes Back. So Julian Glover, for example, he has a little part in Empire Strikes Back.
Mhm.
And he's also he plays Christados in For Your Eyes Only. So so that's there's James Bond and Star Wars overlap in many places. So.
You mentioning Star Wars, it made me think of Star Trek 2.
Yeah.
I'm sort of not really a Trekkie.
Yeah.
I did watch like the original series on television in the 80s when I was, the first 12 years of my life, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
And now I live in Connecticut. But yeah, so I watched a little of the show, the original series when I was living in Ohio. And then when I was in high school, I watched The Next Generation, a little bit of that. Yeah, Star Trek 2 I saw when I was approximately 9-10 years old.
And what did you think?
It sort of stuck out for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because well, I think on a Facebook post, there was a Facebook topic brought up, who do you think, what film villain have you seen that sort of has a justification for being angry, or a justification for why he feels the way he does? And I just think with Khan, you know, he lost his wife, the other planet exploded, he lost his wife, some of his people, he's on this wasteland planet, and he feels slighted. But he's not the greatest guy, I guess, either. But yeah, and Spock sacrificing his life. I guess it's because Leonard Nimoy he wanted out of it, but I guess they brought him back in search of Spock, and because it was such a big deal. So, but
yeah, that's great.
Star Trek
Yes,
2 sort of sticks out for me.
Yeah, Star Trek 2: The Wrath of Khan. Yes. So this is SETI Alpha 5. Yes. Yes, and he's SETI Alpha 6 exploded. Yes.
6 months after I left here.
Yeah. Yes. That well done. Yes. So that's why they poor Chekhov, and they didn't really meet in Space Seed. So so that's one of the great things about the people pointed out in terms of the relationship between Space Seed and Star Trek 2: The Wrath of Khan. So Chekhov, isn't it? Yeah.
The thing is, Khan and Kirk, they never are in the same room. That's kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah. And there's a great moment too where they're on the comm screen, and Khan emerges, and then Kirk, we see the close up on his face. He gets up, and there's a moment where he doesn't know who this guy is, and then suddenly he realizes, Khan.
Yeah.
Or you still remember, right?
Yeah.
I cannot help but be touched. I, of course, remember you. Yes, great stuff. Oh, I love The Wrath of Khan.
You know, I saw. I've gone to the Jacob Burns Film Center in Pleasantville, New York. So they've had celebrities there, and they had one time they had a showing of the Star Trek 2, and they had the director Nicholas Meyer there. So he says the most asked question he gets is, is that Ricardo Montalban's actual chest? Because he looks very muscular, and he says, yes, it is. Because, you know, he looked very buff, or, you know, six-pack abs. I wondered that myself, I guess. I didn't ask the question. Nobody, he says that's the most asked question he gets, so.
Yes, well, right, Khan is meant to be a man who has you know, high intellect and almost superhuman strength, and so it's exemplified, of course, by his physique in the film, which is, as you say, it's really it's very memorable. Yeah, so he's obviously in very good shape in that film. And there's I love the bit where he grabs on to check out, you know, why are you here? And you know, I know it's you know, it's staged for the film, but I love that moment where he grabs the thing and goes, oh, why?
Yeah, lifts him up.
That's great stuff. Yeah. That's a great choice. Yeah, and you saw that in the theater.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh. So in the early 80s when it was first released, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh,
82. We saw that because E.T. was sold out. We did see E.T. eventually, but Star Trek 2 was the other one playing. Oh, and then so we went, and that was another theater than E.T. It was another place. And I remember me, my father, and my brother, after Star Trek 2 ended, we walked into another theater, you know, without a ticket, and Annie was playing. So
Annie. I remember Annie.
That's a I don't know if I care about that movie, but
goodness.
I remember that because it was the theater next door. So
I remember seeing that. I don't remember the entire thing, but I remember I know that I have memories seeing that. Let me put it that way, because I was still a little bit young when it came out, but I do have recollection seeing it, and I remember being quite disturbed by some of the scenes, because, you know, some of the scenes involving the young character in distress, and there's a little bit of she's in peril in some aspects, where she's crying and she's, oh, help me, you know. I remember feeling actually quite disturbed by that as a kid. So now when I think of that film, I recall this kind of fundamental sense of trauma that I had, but with regard to what was Annie. But this brings me to a question I have to ask. So you grew up, or you experienced this great year, which is often heralded, 82 in cinema, right?
Blade Runner.
Yeah, this is a huge year, and so it's legendary.
Blade Runner, the first time I saw it was on TV, maybe a few years later at least. And I recall not being, I think I taped it off of the TV because it had Harrison Ford in it. It maybe because of his Star Wars fame, you know, Indiana Jones. So I taped it. I didn't really get into Blade Runner until maybe the 90s with the director's cut. And then I bought the book Future Noir by Paul Salmon, I think his name is. And then I have these BFI books. They're small books, they're monograph books. So I had one on Blade Runner. And then, you know, the internet came at the end of the 90s around so, and they had some Blade Runner websites. And I began to see Blade Runner is more than just a regular movie. That is a heavy, deep philosophical film that had it had a lot to it, you know. And as I started unpeeling it, you know, as I started getting into it, I said, you know, this is an unbelievable movie, you know. And just like I think basically every time I watch it, I get something out of it. And like somebody on YouTube was covering the movie. Night Watch Zone is his channel, but anyways, they were covering the film, so I thought I'd watch it again before I watch the stream. And I picked something up that I hadn't seen before, which was my last viewing. Maybe it was a few weeks ago. I saw bonsai trees. I never noticed them before. And I think, yeah, I mean, bonsai means long life, I think, in Japanese. So, and I think, you know, Ridley Scott doesn't put, he's like a director like Kubrick. Nothing's put in there arbitrarily. Nothing's put in there just by accident. Everything's put there on purpose. You know, there's not a, everything's in the frame for a reason. It's just not a throwaway item, you know. So like, he really put some thought into. That's a film that a lot of thought is put into. And circling back to Kubrick for a second, I mean, that's the thing about Kubrick is, I mean, if you take Barry Lyndon, if you just took a photo of each frame of that movie, you could put them on a wall, and it'd be like a painting, you know. And they were based on paintings, that film, but you know, so.
No, that's excellent. And
Yeah.
so yeah, you had mentioned Blade Runner, excuse me, a little bit earlier at the start of this, but yeah, I'm so happy to hear your journey with the film Blade Runner, and that you were there more or less around the same time that the film was definitely before, as you say, the director's cut versions became more prevalent in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or starting around that
well,
time. Yeah. So
yeah, I hardly ever watched. When I first saw it, I don't think I don't know if I watched it maybe once or twice. I just think it didn't hit me the first time I watched it. I was like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old when I first saw it. So it didn't, I don't think I was prepared. I don't think I was, it just wasn't the right time to hit me, you know, and see what it was. Maybe my age, the movies I was watching. I don't think I was prepared at that point, because it was like, I think it was like 1986 or something is the first time I saw it, or somewhere in the 80s, mid 80s maybe, or late to 87. I don't know, but yeah. So
yeah, this was, but yeah, this was a great time, I think, to grow
yeah.
up and get into films. It coincided perfectly with the emergence of VHS,
Yeah.
and the types of films that were coming out at the same time as VHS was emerging as a commercial medium and a home viewing market. It was perfect. It was like its own golden age, as it were, in terms of entertainment and genre. I think exemplified so well in that legendary year. Yes, but I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Oh,
Yes.
well, the 80s for me, there's some great 80s movies. I sort of I'm sort of more of a 90s, 2000s, 70s, 60s person, but I mean, the Last Emperor I really love. The Criterion of Last Emperor is fantastic. The 4-disc. I don't know if the Blu-ray has both cuts. I think it only has one cut. So I guess the DVDs. I don't know if I'd buy a Blu-ray because I'd be double dipping, but I think the DVD is the only one with all bells and whistles and everything. But like RoboCop, you know, which I love to quote. Like my friend Sasha says, like I quote things on people's streams. I quote things from like RoboCop or Scarface. So yeah, I don't mean to put a damper on the 80s. I'm just saying there were more there are other decades for me that seem to have more mileage on them to me. I mean, some 80s films are kind of cheesy looking, you know, if you know what I mean.
I agree. Yes. And I think, yeah, I don't disagree at all in terms of what you say as far as other decades of cinema are concerned. So I think for me, I think you and I were we there you know, I was born in 79, and so that meant that this was like I was a kid,
Yeah.
and just as the 80s were starting, and so I was just beginning to get a sense of what movies were during this time. So I think for me, maybe I have this sense of kind of nostalgia in that way. And then from that, I began to discover, say, films from the 70s, and then films in prior decades. So I think that in my view, that's my kind of gateway, as it were.
Yeah.
So that could explain it. But I completely see, and I totally get what it is you're saying. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's our own personal subjective journeys, correct? So
Maybe it's because I'm born in 72. Maybe that sort of slights my vision a little. Because I was like a early 80s. I was an older kid, and then the remainder of the 80s, I was a teenager. I mean, like people like Back to the Future, and I'm not really a Back to the Future person. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's some really great decades. Like Fight Club is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. There are other decades that I think I like better than the 80s, but but there's a few films of the 80s that I really enjoy. Last Emperor, RoboCop, Empire Strikes Back, The Shining, Raging Bull, of course. I don't know. I don't know if Age of Innocence came out maybe it's wrong to stereotype a decade. I don't know. It's kind of hard to. It just seems to me like other decades had more films that I liked, because the 80s had these cheesy movies. I do like to watch films that are not really my favorites, because I like critiquing them and taking it apart, and just I like that aspect of. So I will watch movies that are not my personal favorites, if you know what I mean. So yeah.
No, that makes sense. That absolutely makes
Yeah.
sense. No, and there's no reason to have to, how should I say, you like what you like. So I think that's
Yeah.
great, and that should be
Yeah.
celebrated. So well done, absolutely well done. I suppose I think that's a great way to. I mean, speaking of what you like, I suppose
Yeah.
the other thing that I'd like to ask in the remaining time that we have, which is, well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much again, Brian, for
Yeah.
all that you do, and first of all, for your time today, which is really splendid. And again, it's an opportunity for us to, we know each other, but we don't know each other at the same. You know what I mean?
Oh.
It's so it's this kind of
Yeah.
opportunity is really great, because we can talk to each other. It's still online, virtual, but we can talk face to
Yeah.
face, and I really value this very much. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, my dear friend.
I hope to be there one day in Japan, because
Yeah.
I've had a few Japanese language teachers, and I know a little Japanese history, and I'm not really fluent in Japanese, maybe because I haven't really practiced it that recently, and I'm watching Japanese classes on YouTube.
Yes, you're studying the
So
Japanese language, right? So
sort of. I mean, I'm sort of slacking off, sort of talking to people in the chat on the Japanese language course, but I'm watching them. It's a website called JapanesePod101.com. Risa's a teacher. I mean, she's got tons of people watching her, like 300, 500 people watching her while she's teaching the lesson, yeah, but
I think
yeah,
you're absolutely right. One of the best ways to learn the language would be to visit the country
yeah,
and to get immersed. What's the phrase? Total immersion. So
mhm,
yes, so I don't know when this current situation, this world health situation, is
yeah,
going to subside. I mean, hopefully it's going to be soon, but I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest. And actually, as
yeah.
we speak in Japan, it's becoming quite serious now. So
Oh,
um,
again,
yeah. So
picking up.
unfortunately, there's
Uh,
some spikes in the numbers, so it's not
yeah,
looking good. So we have to turn things around. So, but hopefully soon, and as soon as possible, when things are have are sort of things have gone away, this crisis has gone away, and traveling can resume on a somewhat regular basis. Of course, my friend, it would be great to welcome you here in Japan
yeah. I
one of
got to
these
get my
days.
money saved up. That I bought a boatload of Criterions. I tend to go crazy with these Barnes and Noble sales because they're half off. And um, well, I am a Barnes and Noble member, but I guess they weren't honoring the member because you get another 10% off. But I guess they weren't honoring the 10% off this time. But still, it's 50% off. It's better than paying twice the amount.
Although it would have been nicer to have been able to get that extra 10%. I understand. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I think also that speaking of that sale, I think some people had mentioned that depending on the store or depending on who was at the register.
Oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's a lot of it also had to do with luck, I think. But you're right. I think, a lot's changed over the past year, as you know. So, but yeah, well, hopefully that will continue on. But in any event, yes, once things are calmed down, uh, and you're able to travel, it would be wonderful to welcome you here, my friend, anytime. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we
Oh,
can talk about movies in Japan,
yeah.
and we didn't even yeah. So the we didn't get a chance to talk about you, as you say, you're very interested in other arts like poetry and writing, and your music as well. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, we didn't get a chance, excuse me, to talk about that. But maybe
Yeah.
on a future occasion, if you don't
Oh,
mind, we
okay.
can continue this
Yeah.
conversation, and we can get to
Yeah.
talk. I can ask you more about that. But oh yes. So
Yeah.
you want to show us a few things here. So please,
Yeah.
yes, the floor is yours. So
That's
what would you like to show us here?
that's George Romero's autograph, and I'll just show you a handful. Just Paul Schrader. I don't know if it's showing that well on camera, but and then Paul Schrader and Kathy Moriarty on this one. There's a writing on the inside, but I'll just show you that right there. Kathy Moriarty's written inside it. Oh, I have I have more than the ones I'm showing you. Like I have Gunnar Hansen's from Texas Chainsaw saying like "You're next" on it. Um, this is it Charlie Kaufman or Michael? Charlie Kaufman's autograph for Eternal Sunshine, and then this one. Oh, I'll show two more. Tom Cruise and Anthony Modine on my Kubrick box set. Tom Cruise was a really nice guy, really nice celebrity, and I'd like to give this to my nephew because he likes horror films, but it's autographed by Tom Savini. So I guess I'm showing off a little there, but so
That is so cool. Wow. I
yeah,
recall at the end of one of my live streams, you had shown or you had shared some stills of your signed autographed that DVD set of Dawn of the
yeah,
Dead. So I was so jealous.
yeah,
That was amazing. Wow.
yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
well,
wow,
and
that's
those
such a great
glasses
set. Yeah.
you wear them because of George Romero, right? Yeah,
Yes, yes. So I've been asked this many times. Sometimes people say it a little bit disparagingly, but I don't mind that. It's you know, one of the things that people ask me is, why do you wear those funny looking glasses?
yeah.
And uh, sometimes, most of the time, people are really cool about it. They're very complimentary about it. But the reason why I do is because, yes, George Romero, they remind me of the types of glasses that George
Yeah,
Romero used to wear, especially later in his life. These huge glasses.
yeah.
These are the. This is George Romero, one of the coolest filmmakers. He's made
Oh,
so many films that I've loved
yeah.
growing up. And so I thought, and I saw these, and I have to get them. And I couldn't necessarily find and I thought, well, maybe how can I wear them? It's a little bit, I feel a little bit embarrassed wearing them. They are oversized, and can I just walk around in the middle of the day wearing things? Will people laugh at me? So I was very much inhibited wearing them. But then I started this around the same time, though. I started to try to talk about its films on YouTube, and I thought, oh wow, when I'm talking about films, one of the things that gets me motivated, I suppose, is the idea of films like Dawn of the Dead or something, or Day of the Dead. And I think
Oh,
back on how I watched those as a kid, and
yeah.
wow, this
You
is amazing.
you watched
And I
Dawn of
think
the
part of
Dead.
that is yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
glasses, I think, part of that. No, I'm please
Oh,
go ahead. Yeah.
You've watched Dawn of the Dead several times, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Or probably Day of the Dead too, right?
I actually saw Day of the Dead first.
Oh, you did.
And
Yeah.
then, yes, because that was in the mid 80s. And so this
Hmm.
was, again, I was born in 79. And then the Dawn of the Dead uh, version that I saw was the theatrical version on tape, but it was further cut down to excise some of the bits of violence, because I'd seen it on a tape in the UK.
Hmm.
And so
Oh,
the first time I
yeah.
saw Dawn of the Dead was actually a much more edited down version of the film, much more edited down than the so-called theatrical cut. And then when I first saw the theatrical cut a little bit later, and then I was then able to get these other versions, my mind exploded. You know, it
Because
was
the
it was
UK one, the UK is very well. It's at a certain. Maybe they don't do it as much. They censor. They were more censored. Like Clockwork Orange was a big deal over there for a while. They wouldn't release it for quite some time. Maybe, I don't know, literally 30 years after Kubrick died, maybe. Um, in terms of Dawn of the Dead being censored, that's how I'm relating. You know, because
yeah,
the
yeah.
UK is very, I think it
Well,
censored a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
there were a lot of interesting issues that came. So I was spent a little bit of time in the UK as a kid growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was during this time that I was able to get a copy on VHS of Dawn of the Dead. But uh, I people were saying at the time, "Oh, this is one of the most violent graphic films that has ever been made in terms of horror violence." But I saw it and I was thinking, wow, this is really cool, but is it this huge spectacle of violence? And I didn't really get it at the time, but then I realized there are some weird jump cuts here and there, and I thought, oh, maybe there's some stuff that's missing. And then it grew in my head, and sort of legend grew in my head as sort of, what is this footage that I'm probably missing out on this version? It was still a great version, by the way, but then when I saw the theatrical cut, the more fuller version with the Tom Savini effects, especially at the end, the final sequence, then I was wow, this is just. I mean, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. And then the rest, as they say, is that. So yeah, but
I like the,
there's another thing too with
yeah,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's
uh-huh,
this cartoon called or there's
yeah,
a show called Teenage Mutant
yes,
Ninja Turtles.
yeah,
When it was broadcast on TV, and there was a TV animated series, and when
yes,
it was broadcast on UK TV, it was debuting around this time that I was in the UK, the late 80s. it was a big deal. It was so popular among the kids, my age at the time. But in England, it was called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. It wasn't called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And
Oh,
all the scenes with Michelangelo and the nunchucks were cut out of that. So we'd get essentially Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles and Michelangelo, but he wouldn't be doing his nunchucks. It would all just be the other characters plus Michelangelo. So I think it had to do with editing out those scenes in order to be sort of quote unquote appropriate for younger audiences who would be obviously watching this show on TV in the UK.
Did that seem kind of weird watching that? Did it not work because of those things being taken out of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Like without the nunchucks, was it like did it not work?
No, I don't think so.
Odd.
I don't think. I mean, there were moments where it felt weird because I'm now thinking back on it. It was obvious that what they did was it was basically taking a freeze frame of something and then superimposing it over the moment that maybe the nunchuck scene would happen, or whenever the word ninja would appear, it would essentially be maybe a different type of title. So there was a little bit of a sense of suddenness in terms of the rhythm, but at the time I don't recall feeling it losing out on anything because it was the only version that I was exposed to at the time.
Oh, so you didn't know, you had no idea of what it was like because you had no reference point.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it was only later, and as I got older, that I started to realize what was going on. I mean, I haven't gone back and I haven't done a side-by-side comparison of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle version and the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtle version, but now that I think back on seeing the show as a kid on UK TV, I recall, yes, it was like this. So I mean, it was an interesting time, that's for sure. But at the same time, I recall also that you could watch Day of the Dead pretty much intact, I recall. So you could watch Dawn of the Dead on VHS, and it was a little bit of an edited down version, but Day of the Dead, which is really violent, as you may know, you could watch pretty much intact, as I recall correctly. I mean, actually, now that I think about it, there were a couple scenes that were cut out a little bit in the version that I recall. Just a little bit, but not to the extent that Dawn of the Dead was edited.
I hate the way that Day of the Dead ends because I think it should have a more pessimistic ending, right? Like Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is my favorite of the. Well, I know there's more than three, but I mean the three of them. The Dawn of the Dead is my favorite. It's like epic scale and making a comment about consumerism, and I guess I enjoy Day of the Dead, but I just don't like the way it seems like a cop out ending, like. I would have liked just before the very ending what I thought should have happened, with the helicopter, where they're running towards a helicopter. I think it should have had a more grim ending.
Well, as you may know, there was actually plans. What was originally conceived in terms of the story didn't end up being what the final product was. So I think there was more planned in the initial stages before the budgeting restricted a lot of what George Romero and company could actually achieve in terms of the filming process. But I think what they're planning was something, I think, of a maybe it was described as like Raiders of the Lost Ark with zombies or something of that nature. So but yeah, it's an interesting way to conclude that film, that's for sure. But there is a sense of optimism, I think, but also there's a sense of unknown, like what are they going to do? I mean,
because the zombies will make it to the island, maybe, or
or something like where are they going to go? I mean, there are other pockets of civilization, perhaps, but there's a lot of unknown. Yeah, exactly. Well, they're trying, I suppose, with the fishing, but will he catch the fish? I don't know. I mean, that's one of them. That's another thing too. So there's a lot of unknowns here. going on. But as you say, that there is a sense of optimism, I suppose, towards the future, whatever it might hold, however many unknowns it might hold. But yeah, it's certainly a film that focuses in on what is what I think the filmmakers are perceiving to be some kind of articulation in cinema terms of the what is it in U.S. Political history, in particular, in especially 20th century political history, the idea of the what's known as the military industrial complex. And we see remnants of it, maybe more military than industrial, but still, I think there is a discussion in that, and which is, I think, very appropriate given the fact that we're still in the Cold War in the 1980s, when around the time Day of the Dead came out.
85, I think.
Yeah.
Day of the Dead.
So it was what a film that was. Yeah,
I basically like it. I don't like how it ends.
It has a very I think it has a very like circuitous plot. It seems pretty basic, but it's amazing how you have all these characters and how they end up, and all the kinds of permutations that they all go through, and what ends up happening to them. I find it so fascinating.
A thought just occurred to me. Maybe the real villains in George Romero zombie film are the people, not the zombies. I'm not sure if that's the case. Because they're going up against each other,
Oh, sure. No, exactly. I think that's the main conceit, and how it's how they work together, or how they are unable to work together, the human characters in each film, that forms the source of tension. And the zombie threat, you're absolutely right, the zombie threat, I mean, it's a really direct and quite dangerous threat, that's for sure. But the ultimate source of tension in these films is from the relationships between and among the people. We see it in Night of the Living Dead so much, and then we see a little bit more, maybe arguably more harmony in Dawn of the Dead, although there's actually a lot of tension in terms of the quote unquote domesticated dynamics of the characters, which I think is really fascinating. And then Day of the Dead too, for sure. That's the crux of the film. It's the tension between these characters in this abandoned silo, essentially.
The military against the scientists.
Yeah, and and what will happen, and who will win out at the end, and what their choices are, and then how those choices affect how the zombies are connected with this whole story. So you're absolutely right, Brian. Yeah, I agree.
George Romero said at the horror convention that I went to, he said that Day was his favorite that he made.
Day of the Dead? Yeah.
Yeah, Day was the favorite of the three he made. Well, of course, he made Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, I think another Dead movie.
I think maybe and 5 or 6. Yeah, I think, but Day of the Dead, I think, and I don't know how you feel, but I think Day of the Dead has grown. It was always, during the trilogy of films, it was always seen, I think, as being maybe by a certain, from certain people, maybe it was seen as the lesser film of the three films. Yeah. And I can kind of see that on the one hand, but I think also it's grown a lot in stature over the years. And it was one of, as I say, it was one of the first films that I ever saw by George Romero, and so I have this I think never-ending fascination with the film. But I can see how I know some people, maybe while they like it, maybe regard it as the lesser of the trilogy. Although, as I say, I don't know how you feel. Maybe it's grown in stature over the years, especially with DVD and Blu-ray release.
I think it's a pretty good movie. It's just the ending I just can't get on board with. I just want a grim ending. I just want, it's a horror movie, I know there's some horror movies that have like happy endings, but the Dawn of the Dead, Alien, and The Shining are probably my favorite horror movies. And well, Shining sort of has a glimmer of hope, I guess, because Danny and Wendy get away. But an Alien, Ripley survives. but I, I get, I guess a lot of horror films, I think, by the way, horror is not my main genre, really. I don't know if I'm saying that. I'm, I really like foreign movies a lot. So, and I think I like foreign films a lot. I know we've been talking a long time, but I like the fact that foreign films, you see another culture, but at the same time that anywhere in the world we're all the same. We cry, we laugh, um, we get sick, we die. Um, you know, um, we go through all these sorts of things that all human beings share.
No, well
I
said, my friend.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't like Hollywood cinema or watching some horror stuff, but foreign cinema is something I really like. Yeah, oh, and I also watch films for a film festival because I'm involved with a film festival, so I do that. I like to watch independent films. Um, but yeah, foreign films I like to watch a lot. Yeah.
Oh, well done. Absolutely well done. So, as you obviously have this really great and broad range as far as your own film journey and cinema exposure. So I'm as always, I'm very impressed, as always, my friend, for this. So, but we must continue this
Yeah. Okay.
conversation either in
Yeah.
interview or maybe live chats or something. Because as I say, I feel like I've just there are many other things that I wanted to ask you, my friend, but we'll do this again very soon, I hope. But before we go, are there any film recommendations of any kind that you want to share with us? If not, that's okay.
Oh,
But if there are any
so
films that you think we should watch, that we should have on our radars, from your
oh
point of view, Brian, what are some of those films that you think we should be watching?
well, the thing is, when I mention some films, I'm going to forget some too. I think it's so because there's so many good ones. Um, but maybe I'll just list off the top of my head, and I still won't do it great. But Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant, um, Last Emperor, RoboCop, Blow Up, um, Eraserhead, Godard's Weekend, which I think is an interesting film about. I think I'm digressing again, but I guess I'm digressing. I don't know. Um, I think it's a comedy, and yet it's a commentary as well about capitalism and communism. Um, but whichever way you approach that film, and I don't know if everybody likes that film because they maybe they see it as kind of pretentious. Maybe I don't know, but I like that film a lot. Yeah, but yeah, those films. There Will Be Blood is another good one. No Country for Old Men, The Conformist, La Note, The Shame. I've I got so many that I could think of. Knife in the Water, um, Beware of a Holy Whore, World on a Wire. I probably be here all. I don't know if I'd be here all day, but just a lot of movies I like. So just yeah. So
Yeah, that's great. So, but you've already given us, I think, a great and full and robust sample of those films that you obviously you admire and value and treasure. So, thank you very much for this. This has been great. So, Brian, my dear friend
Yeah.
Brian, also known as Kubricklover1972, thank you very much. So, before we
Okay.
go, where
Yeah.
can people find you? And if they want to search you out, where can people find you, my
Oh,
friend?
okay. Well, obviously my YouTube channel, Kubrick Lover 1972. If it's all right, I want to push my other channel. Just saying the name of it. It's all it is purely music. It's all without any spaces. The Rock and Ronin 47. So it's THE, all lowercase letters, I believe. THEROCKIN apostrophe RONIN 47. And I've only put a handful of stuff on there. I've got some other music on my channel, my Kubrick Lover channel. I want to transfer some more videos onto my Rock and Roll one. And whenever I put music up on my Kubrick Lover, you'll see it also on the Rock and Roll. And whenever I do featured music, but maybe I'll do some poetry. I'm not quite sure as to what I'm going to do and how soon. I mean, that's what I admire about you is you're so motivated and prolific. And I love your enthusiasm. You know, it's just unbelievable. You know, I mean, you just have a unexhaustible love for movies. I mean, you just so I thank you very much. You know, for allowing me a chance to talk to you, and I think we had a great discussion. You know, about movies. And things in general too, you know. So
Yeah, thank you. And that's very kind of you, my dear friend. You're always so supportive and of many people and many endeavors online. So I once again, my deepest thanks and gratitude to you for what you do for me and for everyone here, live streams and elsewhere. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you for your time today, my dear friend. And
yeah.
I will leave information, of course, in the description box of this. And so people can check out those channels, the Rock and Ronin 47 included. So,
yeah.
So that should be that information should be found below in the description box.
So I know it's morning there. It's, if I'm correct, it's 9:49 in the morning, right?
Yes, that's great. Right, as of right now, yes.
Yeah, and Ohio gozaimasu. So
Ohio gozaimasu, or I should say konbanwa. Is it evening?
I thought, oh yeah, evening
or
here,
afternoon?
yeah.
Yes, so konban or
Well,
konnichiwa.
it's 7:49 p.m.
Okay,
so that's because good night is, I think, oyasumi nasen.
Oyasumi nasai. Yes, very good. Yes. Well done.
I said it wrong at the end, right? I think.
How did you? Okay,
I said, oh yes, sen. I think I said it wrong.
Sen or sai? Oyasumi nasai. Yeah.
Oyasumi nasai.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent.
Not sen.
Not sen. Sai. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My Japanese is kind of. I know certain phrases I know I've known for long periods of time, like doitashi mashite, oishi, imananji desu ka.
Yeah.
The how would I say it? Kore wa denwa bango desu ka? Or am I phrasing that wrong?
Kore wa denwa. So is this telephone number? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done.
Counting ichi ni sanchi go ruku shichi hachi kuju.
And then from there, Juichiju. Yeah. So, yeah. So you know it. So that's great. That's right. Yeah. And you're continuing with your studies to the right based on your own schedule.
Yeah, I really haven't got serious about it at the moment. Another thing about watching foreign movies is if you watch particularly some films over and over and over again, you pick up on foreign words. you know, bitte, please in German, or bellissimo, beautiful, in Italian, and allons-y in French, which I think means let's go.
Mm.
So, or da, which I think means yes in Polish and Russian, maybe. So, yeah. Oh, Krzysztof Kieslowski's White. That's a good movie. I like that film a lot.
Well, yes, yes,
I love
yes,
Krzysztof Kieslowski's Decalogue and his Colors trilogy.
yes.
So,
I
yeah,
agree. I agree. Yes,
yeah,
and even and that's great. I'm so glad you had that transition between languages and the Kieślowski films, because in fact, especially in the Three Colors, as you know, we're dealing with different parts of the world, more or less, and different languages as well, and communication. That's one of the main themes of that film, and also the Decalogue as well. So well done. I love
yeah,
that. That's brilliant, brilliant, my
yeah.
friend. Brilliant stuff. So, and that's a great recommendation too. So, but anyway, my dear friend
Okay.
Brian, Kubrick Lover
Yeah.
1972, thank you so much again. We will talk soon, and until then, have a great rest of your day or evening, and thank you once again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, arigato gozaimasu.
こちらこそありがとうございました。またよろしくお願いします。Thank you so much, my friend.
Okay.